All right, and we are jumping into our next lesson here in Unit 4. And what today is all new information for you, pretty much. All right, a little bit of review here at the beginning, but in order to work with systems, we're going to introduce a third form of a line. All right, so we've already kind of talked about point slope form, how that simplifies to slope intercept form, and then today we're going to work on graphing lines in standard form. All right, so by the time we're done, you're going to really have 5 forms of a line that you're going to have to remember. You're going to have to know y equals b as a horizontal line, x equals a as a vertical line. Y equals m times the quantity x minus x1 plus y1 is point slope form. Y equals mx plus b is slope intercept form. Or did I say point slope form, I should say, and then slope intercept form. And then today we're going to introduce, all right, a third form of a line. All right, so now to give you a little review and get you thinking about things, what I want you to do is, all right, go ahead and do parts A to E, or excuse me, parts A to D here in the opener, all right? And this is going to eventually tie into our solving systems of linear equations, all right, so that you'll be able to graph all forms of line. So go ahead and pause the video, graph these two lines and answers questions C and D for me. Get that done. Here we go. Go. Now, right now. Pause the video. Go do it. Right now. All right. Okay, so here's hopefully what you should have. Let me throw my work up here. All right, so this is slope-intercept form, and the reason we call this slope-intercept form is because my slope is -1/2. My y-intercept is my starting point, which is 0, 5. Then I go down 1 to the right 2, down 1 to the right 2, and so on and so forth. This is point slope form. All right, and my slope is 3/1, and my starting point, all right, here is -1, -6 versus the 0, 5 that I started with here. So I start at -1, -6, up 3 to the right 1, all right, as we go. So now, when you graph both of these lines, hopefully you recognize that you had an x-intercept and a y-intercept. So the x-intercept is where the line or the graph crosses the x-axis. So in this case, it would be 10, 0, and where it crosses the y-axis, which would be 0, 5 for our first line. In our second line, it crosses the x-axis at 1, 0, and our y-axis at 0, -3. All right, so all of our lines, okay, except for horizontal vertical lines, all right, will have one x-intercept and one y-intercept. All right, now a horizontal line will only have a y-intercept. A vertical line will only have a x-intercept, all right? So one of each. But all of our other lines, right, that have a slope, all right, that has a rise over run that's not 0 or undefined, all right, will, all right, have one x-intercept and one y-intercept. So now here's the question. If you just had, all right, let me pull this out of the way. If you just had an x-intercept and a y-intercept, could you sketch the graph of that line? So if that was the information we had, could you sketch a graph in the same way that we sketch graphs here for part A and B? All right, so let's look at that. So if my x-intercept was 4, 0, so remember this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. So an x-intercept of 4, 0 would be right here. A y-intercept, and that should be a comma, all right, a comma right there, all right, of 0, -5 would be right here. All right, and so notice if I have 2 points, I can sketch my line, right? So I can just draw, right, my line, okay, through those 2 points. All right, and there is our line. All right, so if I have the x-intercept and a y-intercept, then yes, I could just sketch a graph, all right, very quickly, which is kind of a hint of what we're going to get to today, because that's how we're going to graph a line in standard form. All right, so let's flip the page. So what is standard form? What does standard form look like? All right, so standard form looks like ax plus by equals c. And a, b, and c are all numbers. All right, so an example of this would be something like 6x plus 8y, all right, equals 48. So that's what standard form looks like. Now, notice how this is different than everything else we've done, all right, because the x and the y are on the same side, all right, okay, and then we've never had any other equations where that's true, right? So if we think about point slope form, right, it's y equals. If we think about slope intercept form, it's y equals. A horizontal line is y equals, and then an x equals is our vertical line. So notice for all the other forms of a line that we've talked about, it's either been y equals or x equals. Okay, so this is the only time we have the x and the y on the same side. Now, once again, how do we know it's linear? Right, we don't have anything special about it, right? There's no absolute value bars, there's no exponents, so that still holds true to let us know it's a linear equation. Now, what we're going to do to graph a line in standard form right now is we're going to find the x-intercept and we're going to find the y-intercept from that equation and then use that to sketch, all right, the graph. So now all x-intercepts are of the form a0, because if a point is on the x-axis, right, there is no height, right? So that what we know is that the y value will always be 0, all right? Y-intercepts of the form are going to be of the form, 0b, all right? Because if the point is on the y-axis, 0, 4, 0, 3, 0, -2, 0, -5, there is no run. We don't go left or right. There's no x value, all right? Now that's going to be key, and that's what we're going to use to solve, all right, and find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So when we're finding the x-intercept, all right, remember this is x, this is y, right, in all of our points. So what we know about every x-intercept is we know y will be 0. And what do we know about every y-intercept? We know x will be 0. Right, so we know half the point when we're finding the x and the y-intercept. All right, so now let's take a look at problem 1 here. We want to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Well, right away, if I'm looking for the x-intercept, I know y is 0. If I'm looking for the y-intercept, I know x is 0. So this is all we do, right? If I'm going to find the x-intercept, I know y is 0. So 2x, and I'm going to plug in y, or 0 for y, all right? And we're going to evaluate that. And it's basically what we've been doing here, all right? So 4 times 0 is 0, and notice that gives me 2x is equal to 20. And this is going to leave me a multiplication problem. And I just have to figure out, well, what is that multiplication problem? So 2 times what is 20? And the answer to that is 10. So my x-intercept is 10, 0. All right, to find the y-intercept is very similar, except for we know x is 0. So I'm going to put 0 in for x. So 2 times 0 plus 4y is equal to 20. 2 times 0 is 0. That's gone. That leaves me 4y equals 20. So 4 times something is 20. Well, 4 times 5 is 20. So that means y has to be 5. So there's our x-intercept. There's our y-intercept. Now, for now, we're just working on finding those values. And then in the second, we'll put that together and sketch our quick graphs. All right, but want to make sure you can find the x-intercept and y-intercept before we start moving towards graphing. All right, so let's drop down to number 2 here. So once again, we want to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So right away, I'm going to write in what I know. X-intercept is something 0. Y-intercept is 0 something. And I'm just going to take that and put 0 in for y. So negative 4x plus 8 times 0 is equal to 24. 8 times 0 is 0. That leaves me negative 4x equals 24. So negative 4 times what is 24? Well, 1, I know this has to be negative because it'd be a negative times a negative gives me a positive. So negative 4 times negative 6 is 24. So my x-intercept is negative 6. And in a very similar fashion, right? I'm going to put 0 in now for x. So negative 4 times 0 plus 8y is equal to 24. All right, so negative 4 times 0 is 0, so that's gone. And that leaves me 8y equals 24. Well, 8 times what is 24, right? 8 times 3 is 24, all right? And if you don't know those multiplication facts, you don't take out your calculator, do 8 times 1, 8 times 2, 8 times 3, right? And see till you get to, right, the number that you want. So there's my x-intercept, there's my y-intercept, all right? So real quick, what I want you to do, all right, is all right, the work for number 3 here. I want you to pause the video. I want you to find the x and y-intercept, flip the video back on, and we will see how you did. All right, now let's take a look at the work here. So here's my work. So hopefully when you plug 0 in for y, you got an x-intercept of negative 6. All right, so my x-intercept is negative 6, 0. And then when I plug 0 in for x, I get a y-intercept of negative 3. So my y-intercept is 0, negative 3. Now remember, these are points, so we want you to write your answer as a point. That's another reason why I started the problem by writing it that way. That way I'm going to make sure my final answer is a point if I start by writing it that way. All right, so that is how we find x and y-intercept. So now let's look at problem 4. Now, how do we put all of that together? All right, so notice we want to graph each line. Well, I know it's linear, no exponents, no absolute value bars. I know it's in standard form. All right, so as soon as I see it's in standard form, I want to find the x and the y-intercept. All right, so once again, I know it's going to be something 0, and 0 something. All right, and we just go through the process that we just did, find those 2 points, graph those 2 points. So negative 3x minus 5 times 0 equals 30. All right, so negative 3x equals 30. So negative 3 times what is positive 30? Negative 10. So x would be negative 10. So my x-intercept is negative 10, 0. So remember, this is the x-axis. All right, the vertical axis is the y-axis. All right, so in a very similar fashion, let's find the y-intercept, right? So negative 3 times 0 minus 5y is equal to 30. All right, and so that's 0. That leaves me negative 5y is equal to 30. So negative 5 times what is positive 30? Negative 6. All right, so those times tables are coming back to help you. All right, so negative 10, 0, and then 0, negative 6 is right there. All right, and then all we do, right, is connect those 2 points, just like that, and there's our line. All right, so just a little bit of work, all right, to find those x and y intercepts, and then we sketch the line. All right, let's look at number 5. All right, so once again, I can tell it's linear, right? No exponents, no absolute value bars, right? I know it's the standard form because the x and the y's are together on the same side. So I'm going to get right into my process here, finding the x-intercept and then finding the y-intercept. All right, so negative 4x, and I'm going to put 0 in for y. 6 times 0 is 0. That leaves me negative 4x is equal to 24. All right, negative 4 times what is 24? And once again, we get negative 6 here. All right, so there's my x-intercept, negative 6, 0, which is that point right there. All right, now let's do the same thing for the y-intercept. So negative 4, and then I know x has to be 0, plus 6y is equal to 24. All right, that's 0, and that leaves me 6y equals 24. All right, so 6 times what is 24? And that would be 4. So y would equal to 4. All right, there you go. And notice if I'm looking for my x-intercept, I should have the x in the problem at the end. I'm looking for the y-intercept, I should have my y in the problem at the end. All right, so let that also be an indication to make sure that you're solving for the right piece. So then 0, 4 is the point right there. All right, I can just take my ruler. All right, draw my line through those 2 points, and there it is. All right, let's do one more together. Let's do number 6 together. All right, and so what I want you to do, all right, is complete this problem, all right, all by yourself. All right, so go ahead and, all right, pause the video, do problem 6, find your x-intercept, find your y-intercept, sketch your line and see how you do. All right, so here is my work for problem 6. So hopefully you got an x-intercept of negative 3, 0. You got an y-intercept of 0, 5. And then if you graph negative 3, 0 right there, 0, 5, and draw your line, that's what your graph should look like. All right, so there's your introduction to graphing line in standard form. As always, if there's something you don't fully understand, you'll star it, highlight it, write it down, bring that to class, and we'll answer those questions next time. See you then.